And now everyone, please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to your host, Pat Bishop.
Hello, everyone. Well, thank you so much to you guys that are here today on campus, and a big welcome to those of you that are watching online. My name is Pat Bishop, and I am the Director of Graduate Studies here at Full Sail University, and it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. So please put your hands together to welcome Phil Pallen, brand strategist and owner of Phil Pallen Collective.
I'm in the business of crafting first impressions. It is my job to make sure that in 3 seconds or less, people remember you. Because if you lose them, you've lost them forever. The democratization of media is a beautiful thing because it means that we can all be creators and podcasters and photographers without being experts, without going to school for this. But it's equally terrifying because now that everyone is creating content, it's so much harder to get noticed. My clients are jewelry designers, celebrities, public figures, politicians, small businesses. I get to talk to really interesting people as part of this career. Now I get to teach people in different countries and cultures how to build a brand. I reached a point where I thought, I need to let others in. I need to let people eavesdrop on this amazing information that I learned from my peers, my clients, my friends. And that's where my podcast was really born from. And I want to inspire others to take their passion and turn it into a brand. I'm so lucky because I get to do what I love. This is a job, are you kidding me? I have the best job in the world. Yay! Good morning, beautiful audience. Back for day 2. Who's ready? I'm even wearing a shimmery shirt. I'm so ready to do this. I'm so excited about today. If you've attended some of my sessions during Hall of Fame, when I come back at Full Sail, I talk so often about branding. Of course, it's important. Today, we get to focus specifically on social media and just social media. So that's going to be really fun. I also have a little surprise at the very end of this before we open it up to questions that I think you're going to love. Social media is really kind of very relevant to you getting hired, getting a job. I think a lot of people are probably attending this session with the specific goal in mind of using social media to get a job. Am I right? You're like, yes, I care about social media, but I care so much more about having a job so that I can pay rent, those kinds of things. So I put this presentation together with that in mind. And so I think you're going to enjoy the little surprise I have coming up at the very end of this before we open it up to questions that you have. So, as creatives, all of you are automatically included in that category by simply attending Full Sail University, those of you in this room and watching on the live stream. You are all instantly creatives. That's part of who you are, and communication is an inevitable part of that. As someone now, and I feel very proud to say this, because it wasn't really that long ago that I was in your seat. I graduated 2011, so I've been out 5.5 years, and almost 6 years, and so it wasn't that long ago that I was in this seat learning from people on stage, but also panicking about, oh my God, what am I doing? When I graduate, how does all of this work? You know, who's gonna pay me? So I really approach all of this from that standpoint. I've learned a lot, obviously, since graduating. And I think I almost obsess over this idea of what advice can I give you that will help you get a job. Because I can relate to it personally, because as many of you know my story, and I'm not going to go into detail on it today like I have in other sessions, but you know, you have this plan, You know, let's say you're 6 months away from graduation or a few months away from graduation, you're thinking, okay, what's my job going to be? What am I going to do? And you can spend all this time planning, but you really don't know where you're going to end up. You can try and anticipate it, but just trust me, you have no idea what's in store. But what you can start to do is start to be savvy, start to be strategic about using social media as a way to build your brand, as a way to communicate who you are and why anyone should care, so that it opens you up for more opportunities and opens you up for the right opportunities. So I have kind of narrowed down what I believe are some of the top tips that I can give you for the most important social media platforms for creatives. And I'll skim through each one and give you some tangible advice on how to best use these platforms to build your brand. Sound good? Facebook is one that I like the least. So I don't talk too much about Facebook. I'll go through the most important points. But the most important advice that I can give you is you need to prioritize your platforms. So I mentioned Facebook because while all of us are probably on it, it might not necessarily be a priority platform for your brand. I believe that instead of being average, mediocre on 10 or more different platforms, think of this from a branding standpoint. Where is your audience? How can you prioritize the top 3? I'd rather you be a rock star on 3 platforms than mediocre on 10. And I give you this advice because, and maybe I'm wrong, but I have a feeling you don't have your own little social media department of people that just follow you around and handle your social media for you, right? You probably do this yourself. And even companies now, I'm having to give the same advice to companies that have employees. They still have to prioritize their top 3 platforms. Social media is most effective when you're really good at 3 instead of being average at a bunch. So hopefully your wheels are starting to turn and you're thinking, okay, what are those 3 platforms for my brand? And I also have to give a shout out to some of you in the room, recognizable faces that have attended live streams and sessions that I've been doing throughout Hall of Fame. And I'm not just saying this to compliment you. I'm not fishing, here just to give you compliments. But I have been immensely impressed, more impressed than last year, with Full Sail students on how well and eloquently they're able to communicate their brand in one sentence. Here on campus, we do green room sessions where I get to work in smaller groups with students. And I thought this was so mean, but I still did it. I asked everyone to go around the room without any preparation or heads up to describe your brand in one sentence. And I thought, damn you, Phil, I would hate you if you did this to me. But actually, everyone in that room was able to describe their brand in one sentence as well as I can, and this is what I do for a living. So know that if you haven't been able to attend those sessions, know that this will all be helpful if you have a good sense of what your brand is. Know and acknowledge that it will probably evolve as you go, but if you've got a sense of what your brand is, be able to say it in a sentence. Now, in the context of social media, let's figure out where the audience is, the target market that you've identified. Where are these people on social media? And let's prioritize those as your top 3 platforms. The next question I usually get is, okay, well, so I know I need to be awesome at 3 platforms. What should they be? Well, actually, no. The question that I get the most often is, what are your top 3 platforms? So I figured, just to save someone asking that question in question period, that I would tell you right now, what are Phil's top 3 platforms? Not necessarily what your 3 should be, but they'll start to give you ideas on how I've prioritized these. Number one for me, Twitter. Oh, someone just cheered. We're instantly BFFs. Oh, yeah. We already are BFFs. Yeah. So Twitter is my number one platform because it's quick, it's easy. As some of you know, it's the easiest way to get in touch with me for busy people. But in fact, I still believe that this is the most important social media platform to access a targeted audience for free. You can, if you use this platform strategically, access a very targeted audience of people that are interested in what you're doing without having to spend money on advertising like you'd have to on Facebook and LinkedIn and many other platforms where you can advertise. You can still advertise on Twitter, but you don't necessarily need to, depending on your goals. If you're strategic, and I'll actually give you some framework today on how to write those tweets so that you have no more excuses when I say, why aren't you on Twitter? I don't know what to tweet. Yes, you do. Replay this video a few times and you'll get really good at it. So Twitter for me is number one. Number two, a platform that doesn't get as much love as others, but in fact is the most important platforms for me. One of the most important platforms for retailers in terms of converting sales, Pinterest. And this is really my best example of prioritizing your platforms and giving them purpose. I'll talk about that coming up. But I used to use Pinterest to document things that had absolutely no relevance to my brand, like cute outfits, recipes that I should make, travel destinations I wanted to go. And then I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing on Pinterest. I don't have a clear purpose. And then I thought, well, what advice would I give to someone else? What advice would I give to a client to use this platform effectively? And I realized that I would have said, so give it purpose, establish a framework to motivate you to update it, and also give your audience some expectation of what they're going to get from you. And I don't think, as lean and mean my physique really is, I'm pretty sure people aren't coming to me for workout or diet tips, okay? They're coming to me to know good examples of branding. So why wasn't I pinning that? I don't know the answer to that question. So I reworked what I was doing, and I decided I'm going to use Pinterest to document great examples of branding. Business cards, websites, logos. I have over 20,000 pins because I dedicate 5 minutes a day to pinning. And I've gone from like 800 followers when I first started to over 20,000. And that's in the course of about a year. So that's the power of giving your platforms purpose, prioritizing them. I'll talk a little bit coming up about giving each platform purpose, but I'm just kind of previewing that idea now. My third one, I think, is Instagram, which I have a love-hate relationship with. Shout out to Sarah, who I just gave my Instagram password to. I'm like, can you just post for me? Because you took a great photo of me earlier. So Instagram is stressful to me. And it probably for some of you, unless you're a photographer, I can do a lot of things well. But driving and photographing things are two things I do not do well. So I struggle with this because obviously in the branding world, I have very high expectations of visuals. I have to, or I'll be unemployed. But I find it stressful to be responsible for those on my own, you know, to be like taking pictures and I go travel all these cool places and then I'm like, oh God, how do I take a picture of this and make it look cool? I need to be cool. So Instagram I find stressful, but it actually, the last few months have been better because I've really been clear on the purpose that I give my Instagram. I travel a lot, as some of you know, and so I use my Instagram to document my travel adventures around the world. I keep coming back to Full Sail and hitting you over the head with the idea that if you choose your job and your industry wisely, maybe you can do it from home. Or better yet, maybe you can do it from a hammock in Thailand. Wouldn't that be nice? You have the freedom to do it. I do it. I was just a few years ahead of you. I graduated Full Sail and then decided on having a career in branding and social media, which I can do from anywhere. So I do it from anywhere. And I use my Instagram to document that. And it's kind of fun. So those are my 3 priority platforms. This is where my audience is. My audience, sure, some of them are on Facebook, but it doesn't make the cut for me. I don't have a Facebook page. I have a profile where I connect with people. But for me, this is my focus. That's the decision I've made. I am dedicated to making sure I can grow these platforms by engaging my audience there. So I already brought up this idea because really prioritizing and giving purpose go hand in hand. But let's talk specifically about giving your platforms purpose. Started to discuss how my 3 priority platforms have purpose. Twitter is my go-to for quick and easy engagement with people around the world. Pinterest I use to document great examples of branding. And Instagram I use to document my travel adventures around the world. A lot of times, by the way, I only post things unique to that platform unless it's really great. For example, about 1 in 3 photos on Instagram only will I push to Facebook. Why don't I just share the same content at the same time across all of my platforms? So that was the answer. The answer is because I have no motivation or reason to follow you on all of these platforms if you post the same thing at the same time. Doesn't mean if you have a great blog post that you can't post these, across your platforms, but think about when, think about why, and think about, the motivation people have to engage with you in different places. Giving your platforms purpose gives you the framework to know why you're updating it yourself, but more importantly, it conveys value to your audience about what they're getting from you. Really, like every good business, every single platform that you use should satisfy a need out there. This is hard. It's hard to come up with this, but I have faith that you can. And you don't have to be too serious about it. For example, Instagram, I'm not a travel agent, but travel is a part of what I do. It's a part of what inspires me. So I've made it a part of my brand and I document that. And, I've given you my 3 platforms, but there are a lot of other platforms. Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, we've talked about, LinkedIn, YouTube, Snapchat, Facebook. Facebook I put at the end because it always gets too much attention. Not in Phil's slides. And then there are more platforms that I can even fit in this beautifully symmetrical slide. There's so many out there that I, with my minimalist aesthetic, don't have room to put. But there are lots out there, and I'm not saying just because they're not there that they're not useful for you. In fact, I'm all about embracing some of the newer social media platforms because they're less saturated. For example, YouTube, which I probably won't talk too much about, but I can take questions on it at the end. YouTube is one of the hardest platforms to build your brand and get recognition. Not that there aren't exceptions to that, but it is such a crowded space now compared to even a few years ago that simply posting is not really enough. So let's dive into some specific platforms. I said that I was going to give you tangible, actionable advice, and I'm going to follow through with that. Let's talk about Twitter. I told you that I was going to give you some framework. Now, I have a book on this. If you've read it, this might be review. But if you haven't, shut up and tweet, yes. If you haven't read it, you should. But let me give you, one chapter that I have on it talks about the content that you should be creating. I believe that every tweet, because I hear this a lot, Phil, I have no idea what to tweet. I'm like, okay, I need to address this. I need to create a system so that people now no longer question what they're supposed to post. So I believe that there are 4 tweet types. I'm going to put them up on the slide. Take a screenshot of this, or if you're in the room, you can take a photo. No flash. You can take a photo of this slide and refer to it, but I'll teach you what these 4 tweet types are right now. They each have a short form. But this is the framework essentially that I've designed so that every 4 tweets that you send can be one from every tweet type. Believe it or not, only one of these 4 tweets, so one in every 4 tweets, should be about you. Because that's the number one mistake people make with social media. People use it to talk about themselves when really it's about others. It's not a tool for broadcast. Social media is a tool for conversation. So only one in every 4 tweets gets to be about you, and it's called WL, website link. I don't say self-promotion, SP, it's WL, website link. Here's why. Ideally, you attach a link to whatever it is you're sharing. Could be a blog post, could be press. But a link will take us somewhere where we can engage with you for longer. Self-promotion means that I'll read it, engage with it for about 5 seconds, and then I move on to something else. Whereas it's a link, linking to a blog post or linking to something you've created, then, it's not always possible to have a link, but strive for that, because then I can engage with your brand for 3 minutes instead of 3 seconds. So one in every 4 tweet types, anything that's about you gets to be WL, website link. Let's move on. Next one, QQ stands for quick question. Solely meant for engagement. It can be on brand, right? I told you have to have your brand sentence ready to rock. So you know what's on brand and what's not on brand, and that's totally fine. I actually alternate quick questions. I use this framework myself, and for all of our clients. I switch up quick questions to be on brand and not on brand. Here's a quick question that would be on brand for me. What's your favorite social media platform? No, that's too nice. Let's do one sassier. What social media platform drives you nuts? It's quick and easy, and most people have an opinion. An example of a quick question that is not on brand could be, one that I use often, coffee or tea. By a show of hands in this room, and at home, you can put your hand up too. Be a part of this. I just can't see it. But we'll play pretend. By show of hands, who prefers coffee over tea? Okay. Who prefers tea over coffee? Now reflect on how much do you think I actually care about your answer. I don't really care. But the point is that I just engaged every single person in this room and at home with a question. And so guess what? Not every tweet that I send is about my brand. I'm not a brand robot. I'm a human being. And sometimes we'll talk about things that are not related to our work or our career or our interests or aspirations. Sometimes you just want to have a conversation to keep it real. And that's exactly what we did, and that's what you can do with quick question. Let's move on. IB stands for industry buzz. Industry buzz is the opportunity that you have to reinforce the fact that you're an expert in whatever you tell us your brand is. Remind us that you know what's up. Remind us that you are in the know by sharing statistics, facts, quick tips, anything that is simple, actionable, reinforces that you know information related to whatever it is you're doing. And this tends to be the tweet type that gets the most retweets. And retweets are important because that's you essentially getting yourself in front of other people's audiences. And that's really a key element to growth on social media, right? It doesn't mean that every single retweet is going to get you a ton of new followers, but it could. And in general, it's just helping you build brand awareness. When someone reads your tweet and goes, I couldn't have said it better myself, so I don't have to retweet. That's how that works. That's the psychology behind that. So industry buzz tends to be the easiest and most common one to retweet, and so it's good to mix those into your content schedule. How often should you tweet, by the way? That's a hard question to answer. Sometimes people tweet 4 times a day. Sometimes they tweet 40 times a day. It's really what is sustainable for you. That's the answer. But I tend to think that every single person can tweet at least 4 times a day. And instead of, sending 40 in one day and then 0 the next 3 days, it's better to come up with a system. And if I were you, I'd stay on top of these a week in advance. So what I do is I actually schedule almost all of my tweets. I log on to my Twitter more times than I'd like to admit per day. And there I'm engaging with people real time. There I am, there I'm interacting with people that are interacting with me, and I do that real time, but I don't necessarily need to, put in my calendar, tweet this, because it'll never happen, especially on a busy day. Use a platform like Buffer or Hootsuite to schedule out your content to stay 1 week in advance. It'll just save your life. Well, that's a bit dramatic. I don't think it's going to save your life. I take that back. That's too much drama. But it just helps you keep organized. Quick question. We covered. Website link we covered. Industry buzz we covered. Let's do the final and most important one. Networking effort. NE. Most important tweet type, because it's the whole reason you should be on Twitter. You're on Twitter to meet new people, to start conversations. You have the power to reach out to someone you don't know and give them a compliment. Start a conversation. Don't read from your business card. Think about that happening in real life. If I went up to you and I said, "Hi, I'm Phil Pallen. I'm a brand strategist, and I can help you with this, and I'm like, whoop, nope, tuning out. But if I come up to you and give you a compliment, you're kind of like, I don't know you, but thanks. And it starts that rapport. So, and put some thought into your NE tweets. And I can tell you this because, some of my job involves helping people like you build your brands. But then part of my job also involves helping public figures and celebrities manage their social media. And I am often in the power to make the decision about what gets retweeted, what gets acknowledged, replied, favorited, or more often ignored. And so I can tell you from the other side of things that if you put thought into an NE tweet and you make it easy for that influencer to retweet it, they're not always guaranteed to, but they might. For example, if that celebrity has a book that you read, rather than saying, "Hey, at celebrity, loved your book," that's not great. You could say, "Hey, at celebrity, loved your book and your perspective on entrepreneurship. I feel very inspired." Something like that puts more thought into it, something specific that shows you've done your homework, is much more likely, exponentially more likely, to be retweeted. So those are the tweet types. Hopefully you've taken a screenshot or you have taken a photo of this slide and used this moving forward to get active on Twitter and to stay active and to stay consistent on this platform where you can literally meet some of the most important people. In fact, some of my best friends now in real life, I almost said IRL. That would be a little too millennial. I've met some of my best friends on Twitter. My friend Maria in Stockholm, we met on Twitter and we hang out all the time when I go back. I met people on Instagram, for example. This is the new age. So you should be active on these platforms to make really powerful connections. And I think Twitter is more productive than Facebook because Facebook, you can't really interact with strangers. Facebook is for your close-knit group of friends. And if someone you don't know adds you, how do you react to that? You're like, "Ooh, weirdo, get away." Well, maybe don't do it exactly like that, like me. But on Twitter, you can start conversations with random people. I often liken Twitter to an airport where there's people moving in all different directions with all different purposes, but it's a hub. The type of place where engaging with strangers is kind of normal, and starting conversations with people is kind of okay. And so think about how you can use this platform. And that's a little preview of what I write in my book. But I actually wrote this book not because I love Twitter. I mean, I do enjoy it and I'm thankful for it because it's helped me grow my business. But one of my first gigs out of Full Sail was in LA. I was working with TV hosts. And after the course of a year, I went back to my students and I said, what's the most important thing you've learned from me? Because I think I might write a book, even though I don't even read. I'm like, I have the shortest attention span. I was like, I'm going to write a book. But I want this to be something that's useful for people. So I went back to my students and I asked them, what's the most useful thing you've ever learned? And they said strategy for Twitter, tweet types, and growth strategy, which I have a whole other chapter dedicated to, which is how to grow at least 1,000 followers every single month. And if you're not growing that quickly, then you could be doing something better to make sure you do. And I give the formula for that. It takes me at least half an hour to explain. That's why writing a book was great, because I could just do it once. So yeah, that's chapter 6 actually in the book, popularity contest, where I talk about growing your numbers. Because I worked with hosts out in LA that used Twitter to book jobs. Because they would go into an audition and not only would they deliver, the lines, they'd read a prompter, they'd be a good host, but then they'd say, hey, by the way, I have 50,000 followers on Twitter. I have 100,000 followers on Twitter. That helps you get a job because I know, and I have these conversations weekly. In fact, I'm at Hall of Fame where there's all kinds of successful alumni. And I ask them these questions. What are you looking for? Who are you booking? Why are you giving a job to someone? And it's always involves talent, but also audience. When you bring an audience to the table, you become more valuable. And so I'm wanting you to start building that audience now. Don't wait until you graduate to go, I guess I should be active on this platform. Start now so that you're more attractive for a hire, for a gig, for a job. Okay, so we talked about Twitter. Let's talk about the most boring platform. But you know that I'm teaching this to you, so it's not going to be boring. That's why you're here. Let's talk about LinkedIn, my least favorite. No, second least, because Facebook's really, I think, the least productive. LinkedIn is just kind of boring. However, it's very important for finding the right people. So let's just go through the basics of LinkedIn. Here I am. Add me on LinkedIn, by the way, if you want to keep in touch. But LinkedIn is, of course, it's like your online resume, right? And so think of it that way, but also think of it as really a human search engine. Job titles you have listed, including keywords that people are searching for. For example, there's really not any other platform where I list myself as a speaker, but on LinkedIn, I have that there in case someone's looking for a keynote speaker, on branding for a conference. And in fact, I've had people reach out to me on LinkedIn just because I have it listed in my job description. LinkedIn is kind of like the Microsoft of social media. It's ugly, but it works. So, they're trying to improve it, but it's still so clunky. But now you can have, a visual in the background, which is really almost impossible to find an image that looks good in that background. I keep trying, and I clearly have not found it yet. But you've got that visual opportunity to put behind, your information on your profile. And that's kind of cool because, again, we're crafting that memorable first impression. But there's a few other things that I'll talk about in terms of setting up your profile, things that you need to think about. Photos, your display picture. I mentioned this yesterday in one of the sessions. If you don't have a great headshot, and I mean a great headshot or not headshot, profile photo, you need to get one. And you can hire a photographer. You can spend money on this. Because so many of you are so quick to go shopping and buy a cute outfit for your party on Friday night, when really you should be spending money on having a great photographer take a photo of you. Better yet, network at Full Sail, become friends with someone who's a great photographer, and then, help each other out. But more people are going to see your profile photo than are going to see your cute outfit, right? It is your responsibility to accurately portray who you are in real life online. And so your profile photo can't be a crop photo from a family reunion that's pixelated and ugly. It needs to be a great shot of you, how you look now, no pageant photos from 1992. I want a profile photo that shows me who you are right now, so that when I see that, not if, because nowadays I will look you up on Google before I meet you. Not if, but when I look you up, when I consume your online brand, and then I meet you in person, if those two experiences are consistent, that's a very positive experience for me as a fellow human being. Alternatively, if you build a brand that is not accurate to who you are in real life, let me use dating as an example, online dating, right? If you build a profile about who you wish you were but aren't actually, right? And then I see you and I'm like, ooh, we got a hottie. Boom. Let's meet up. Let's hang out, right? Go on a first date. And you are not how you've portrayed yourself. We have a problem. That's a very, that's a very negative reaction that I'm going to have to you. And that's the dating world, but it's every other world as well. So that's why I say it and I mean it. It is your responsibility to accurately portray who you are in real life online. So your profile photo on LinkedIn and on every platform needs to be great. Copy. I have some opinions on this that are not necessarily the law, but I love for copy on your website and on your LinkedIn profiles to be written in first person. Again, there are people that will argue with me on that and prefer it in third person, but I just think like it's 2017, we know you're writing your own LinkedIn profile, So when it's written in third person, it establishes distance. That's just not necessary. I like when things are a bit more direct, so I tend to write copy for myself and for my clients in first person. I do this. This is who I am. I think people connect with it better. It feels more conversational. And again, to just make sure you're including relevant keywords to your brand. What are you capable of doing? What have you done before? What are people typing into Google and into LinkedIn to find talent for jobs, for gigs? Make a whole list of what those words are, and then audit your profile to make sure you've included them. You've included them as keywords. They're endorsements is my next thing, to make sure that you're getting endorsed for these things. LinkedIn has this built-in feature where you can endorse others with like testimonials, but also skills. The more built up those are, the more established you look. And so that's your goal, is to get to at least 500 contacts on LinkedIn, because it says 500 plus, and to get as many endorsements and skills endorsed as possible, because it just makes you look like more of an expert. And it's pretty simple to do, particularly with classmates, for example. Ask them to endorse you, you endorse them, help each other out. I wanted to talk briefly about visuals, that weird visual opportunity on your profile that I showed you behind your information, but also for things like your blogs and your websites. It's not okay to just go to Google Images and just lift any image you like. That is actually illegal in most cases. So let's not break the law, shall we? Instead, I'm going to give you a few websites that are really good for using royalty-free images for either free or very inexpensive. I'm not a big fan of very traditional stock photos. Stock photos are just not cool. And so these sites have really high-quality images that you can usually use for free. I think the only one that's paid is Adobe Stock, but it's like $1 per photo to license it. So if you need, great, and there's more than just this, but these are a few of my favorites. Go ahead and note these, because I think they're great for finding photos that you have the rights to use for your blog images, for really any kind of, quote cards, any kind of visual opportunity that you need. It's not always possible to just go hire a photographer, for example, right? Even for me in my business, I schedule photo shoots every 2 months. And that's where I have a plan of what all my blog posts are, any kind of visual I need for conferences, for example. I gather all of those and I'm organized, but a lot of times, I can't always do a photo shoot to get a photo I need. So particularly if you're graduating, I don't think you'll have the budget to go hire a photographer every month to get your blog images. So this is a great place to start building that really beautiful visual brand that you're capable of having. And here's another great thing about LinkedIn. You can, in 15 minutes, if you don't have a website, for example, that you build on a platform like Squarespace, I'm a fan of, if you don't have a website yet, that's kind of silly for you to not have a website. Because having a website allows you to be a bit more of a control freak about how people consume you online. Without a website, you are giving up the control of having a say on how people build their first impression of you online. By not having a website, you're decreasing the likelihood that you have a say on what those first few listings on Google are going to be. So having a website is a really smart idea, even if it's a one-pager. It can be very, very simple. If you don't have the time or the know-how to build a simple website, use this service, branded.me, which will help you turn your LinkedIn profile into a fully functional, full-width banner, responsive website in like 10 minutes. So sorry, but I'm really helping you run out of excuses on why you can't be tweeting, why you don't have a great LinkedIn profile, and why you don't have a damn website. Because I just showed you how to do it in 10 minutes, at least to start. Something is better than nothing. You can always make it better. But this allows you to take information that is already aggregated and turn it into a visual website for now, before you launch a full website. So that is branded.me. They should definitely pay me to keep endorsing them, but they don't. Here's another site that I like when I'm writing blogs. I really don't like writing blogs. I do it because I have to, but that's an area where a lot of my team will help me. This is a really cool website called Blog Title Generator, where you put in a subject of whatever it is you're going to blog about, and it will shoot back possible titles that, of course, you can workshop, but it gives you those first few ideas on how to write a blog post title, which is really an art in itself. So this platform I find immensely useful in terms of a starting point for coming up with blog titles. So how are we doing for time? We're doing well. I do want to get to Q&A in just a few minutes. One platform that I haven't talked too much about, but I love, is Snapchat. And so I mentioned at one point earlier that there are newer platforms that still haven't been tapped for talent and for strategy. I believe Snapchat is one of those. It's one of those where businesses in the next few months are really going to start to explore, to figure out, if they haven't already, how they can use this platform to access typically a younger demographic. But the beautiful thing about you and about Snapchat and about being a millennial is that you've grown up with social media. You use this as a way to communicate with your friends, but not everyone has that level of comfort. What you do as a hobby on Snapchat and on all these social media platforms is something a lot of companies are willing to pay money for. Advice on strategy, advice on communicating in a way that's going to resonate with their audience. You do these things inherently because this is how people communicate nowadays. I highly encourage you, if you enjoy social media, to think about a career in this amazing industry. Because I mean it when I say that you could be writing content and advising and consulting on strategy for businesses from a hammock in Thailand, because I've done it. And so I just want you to know that if you're ever feeling down about, I have no idea, what I'm going to launch, how am I going to make money, I don't really know why you wouldn't go into social media if it's something you're interested in, if it's something you're good at, if it's something you're willing to continue learning more about. You'll learn about it here at Full Sail, but you can also educate yourself in an ongoing way by just being informed online, researching ways that you can use this. But I'm just telling you that you all already have a skill that you could monetize tomorrow. I say that because I know and speak passionately about how stressful it is being in your position going, I have no idea how I'm going to get a job. Well, now I just told you how you can get a job. So I told you why you need to be tweeting. I told you how to make LinkedIn better. I told you no excuses. You must have a website. And now I basically gave you a job on your own. Aren't you glad you're here? Uh-huh. You should add me on Snapchat, by the way. It's one of my faves to just keep in touch with people and opportunities for storytelling. So that's what I'm saying to you. You all already tell stories. This is how you engage with people on a daily basis. Hello? Why aren't you monetizing this? You're welcome. One more thing that I've been thinking about. I think about this a lot. I mentioned at the very beginning that I almost obsess over what can I tell grads to make that process less stressful of going from student to real life, because it happens quickly. So I thought for a little bit about not only did I, how I made that transition from student to professional entrepreneur, but I thought about some recent grads, people that have figured this out on their own. And I thought, I wonder what advice recent grads that are now working and are building their careers, becoming successful, what advice would they give students about what they wish they knew when they graduated? So I reached out to a few students that are killing it. These are all Full Sail grads that I'm going to share a few videos that I had them film and said to me, giving you advice today to make social media, to make this whole career transition less stressful. So let's start with Yvonne.
My advice to all the students is don't try to run before learning how to walk. It's okay to have big dreams, but you have to take them step by step. When I was still at school at Full Sail, I was constantly comparing myself to other recent grads and the amazing jobs that they were having right after graduation. And I didn't understand that I really needed more practice to work on my skill set and more experience time. So I stayed there working right there at Full Sail for a full year and a half and using my free time to gain more experience and work on my own YouTube channel and freelance here and there. And it wasn't until I felt that I was personally and professionally ready to start applying to my real dream jobs. And it definitely worked out. And I didn't understand it back then, but I totally wouldn't have done it any other way.
It's
good luck, people, and work hard. Hashtag work hard.
I love Yvonne. That's great advice. And speaking of dream jobs, you know where Yvonne is now? Fresh out of school. I mean, he stayed here for a little bit. Yvonne is working at BuzzFeed. Killing it. Here's Dalton. He has a great little message for you.
It might take some time. You might not get exactly what you want right away. But with the people that you do know in the industry is to stay in contact with them. That's what I did with Phil. Because I wasn't ready to move yet. So I just kept in contact with him. I was like, hey, here's an update on my life. This is what I'm doing. Hoping to move out soon. Give me a job soon, please. And so I just kept in contact with Phil. And eventually when I was ready to move, I was able to give Phil my services, help him out, and start working for him. And the other thing that I would say is don't wait. If you want to move somewhere, if you think you're going to thrive better in a different city, just go for it and figure out the rest later. I wish I would have moved to Los Angeles a little bit sooner than what I had. I was worried about money and everything, so I tried to work and save up as much as I could before I went, but I wish I would have went sooner and just done it and jumped in and took the risk, because I could possibly be a lot farther than I am now, even though I'm happy where I'm at right now. But it's just something, you just got to jump in and go for it.
So that's Dalton. Dalton has a great job. Guess who he works for? Me! I wanted to share his story because lots of Full Sail students ask me, Phil, how can I work for you? But of course, I mean, my business is pretty small, so I can't hire everyone. But Dalton is someone that I have recently hired. We love working with him. He's an amazing addition to the team because he came to me with tangible skills. And a great attitude. And he's so happy and positive, and that is really what got him to that point. So I wanted him to share his story.
I think that I would have loved to know back then that sometimes you don't have to look for opportunities, but you have to create them. So I spent a lot of time in career development and trying to find the perfect job or trying to find a job for me, when I wish I would have started earlier, creating my own projects, my own brands, starting my own businesses, working with other people to come up with projects and that kind of thing, instead of just trying to search for a job or trying to spend a lot of time on job boards or that kind of thing. Because ultimately what really might push you where you need to be or where you want to be is things that are your baby.
So that's Andrea, a recent grad from Full Sail, who is also killing it. Andrea was recently featured in a Forbes article and just last week was on Gary Vaynerchuk's daily vlog. She is amazing. And she was one of the first students who reached out to me after I graduated Full Sail. She was a few years after me and looking for advice. She works as a host, an online host, a social media influencer. And at the time that we chatted, I actually have her in my upcoming podcast episode. I chatted with her. At the time that we filmed this, she was in Mexico working remotely she calls herself a digital nomad, and this girl is living. And so I wanted to share her story as well. All of these students graduated recently from Full Sail. This is my friend Duda, and I'll play his message and then tell you about him right after.
I think perseverance is a really important characteristic for people that want to be successful. And in my case, I just kept believing and reaching out to as much people as I could. And from there, a door that I wasn't even expecting to opened. And I was doing my groundbreak, just the work that I wanted to be doing at the time. And that just came out of the blue, and I was ready to jump on the opportunity. And I did.
Speaking of opportunities, Duda, who was an international student at Full Sail, started with an internship with one of the most successful Full Sail grads of all time, Sebastian Chris, who's won more Grammys than I can count. Duda started with an internship with Sebastian in LA. They met at Hall of Fame last year. Now he's working, which means getting paid full-time for Sebastian in LA. I mentioned Duda as an international student. That's something I experienced as well. I want to also give a shout out to another one of my contractors that was a Full Sail grad, Alex Aldonna. I did an interview with him, but the Skype quality was not great, so I didn't put him in. But he still gets a shout out because he's amazing. Alex was from Mexico, Duda was from Portugal, I was from Canada. As an international student here, you have additional pressure. Just what you need, right? Additional pressure to make sure you figure out a way to stay in the country. All of us have figured out how, just to reinforce to you that with a lot of hard work and a good immigration attorney, it's possible to stay here. You have to find someone, to sponsor you, but you do get 1 year if you do OPT as soon as you graduate, and that year is crucial for you. That's the beauty of not only being at Full Sail here to go to school and be in this community, but the moment you graduate as an international student, if you do OPT, you can stay here for up to a year and essentially do whatever you want. Do an internship, unpaid, paid internship, employment. You have 1 year to find someone who can sponsor you in your industry, and obviously you have to work with a lawyer to find out, what visa you should apply for, etc. It is not easy. I graduated 2011, and only last week did I finally get my permanent green card. I've been through everything, okay? I feel like I've been on every work visa and every possible arrangement, But so that was almost 6 years ago when I started this process. So it's not easy, and it doesn't happen overnight, but it is possible to stay in the U.S., despite what Donald Trump is telling you. So I know about that additional pressure. I know how that feels, but I, just want you to know that it is possible to do it. And so let's get to some questions. We'll start with some questions. I know a few of you are putting up your hands, but it's really whoever has the microphone who gets to ask. So we'll start. Where are we at? Right here.
Hi, my name is Leticia. Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a question about more towards the YouTube part, because you mentioned that it's not only posting content, it's much more. So I was wondering, what exactly would you say to someone who's trying to kind of like break a barrier of an amount of subscribers?
Yes. So there's a lot of different objectives and goals on YouTube. You mentioned subscribers. I think how you have to think about YouTube is really how it functions, which is as a search engine. YouTube is the second biggest search engine online next to Google, and Google owns YouTube. It's kind of crazy. But really, what can help you get discovered and can help you build engaged followers is by simply creating content that gives people an answer to the question that they're looking for. Right? Rather than creating content around what you want and hoping that people just magically stumble on it, that's probably not going to have any legs. Whereas if you create content, the more specific, the better. It increases the likelihood that people are going to find you and engage with you. Now, you do, because it's such a saturated platform, you really do have to get specific. So I could do a whole other talk about SEO and about long tail keywords. The more specific you get, the better. Don't be afraid to get specific and to satisfy a specific need, because there's less content out there around that topic. And by creating it and providing a solution and answer to a question that people have, it increases the likelihood that you'll get discovered. But there's really no magic formula to, get a bunch of subscribers overnight, to create videos that are going to work. The most important advice I can give you is be active. Look at your analytics. Look and see what's getting the most views. Try to understand why, and use that intelligence moving forward to make informed strategic decisions on what you create moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. Next up. Oh, you're over here.
Yeah, I'm over here.
I'm coming over to you.
Hey, my name is Darius Richardson. I'm in the recording arts degree program. So my question pertains to Instagram. I have 2 accounts. I have a personal one and my artist one, but I noticed I have a lot more interaction on my personal one versus my artist brand. Mm-hmm. So should I just scrap that one and just post everything? Because I'm trying to keep them separate, but I noticed that I have more attention on my personal Instagram page than I do my artist brand.
Mm-hmm. So I love that you've noticed that and drawn some conclusions from that. My advice to you and to everyone who's trying to juggle multiple platforms or multiple accounts on the same platform is consolidate when possible to make your life easier. Rather than being active on 2 Instagram platforms, I'd rather you be active on 1 and do 1 really well, and then maybe build a presence on another social media platform where you can access an entirely new audience. To me, and I don't know enough yet about your brand, but I can almost draw the conclusion that it is unnecessary for you to have 2. Because we know, even as an artist, that you're also a human being. And so it's okay to in fact, I encourage you posting real type posts that are not always related to your music and your work as an artist. People want to go behind the scenes with you, specifically on Instagram. They want to see what you're doing day to day. They want to feel like you're in your back pocket, right? On that adventure, seeing you in the studio, seeing you work and record and work hard and, be with family, all those things. You don't have to have 2 platforms for that. If I were you, I'd merge it all into 1, keep your life simple, half the work, and then start to put that other energy into building another social media presence where you can access a new audience.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Over here.
Hi, I'm Damien Norman, music production major.
Nice to meet you.
My question would be, what would be your number one tip so far as drawing attention to something like a SoundCloud for musicians trying to promote their music online?
Yeah, so that's something I don't know too much about. I just don't have a lot of personal experience with SoundCloud, but I know that it is huge. It's arguably the most important platform if you're a musician. That's a great example of one that I didn't put an icon for in my my presentation, but I'm glad you asked about it because it is immensely important, specific to your industry. So I actually need to do a lot more research on SoundCloud because it's pretty amazing how it's grown fairly recently and become something that industry execs and influencers are looking for. I actually love that you bring it up because this came up yesterday in one of the green room sessions. One of our recent Full Sail grads, Chris, works for Atlantic Records in Nashville, and he and I were chatting about this, and people were asking him about SoundCloud, and that's one of the platforms that he is looking at when he's looking at signing an artist. And so you're best to actually, I mean, there's so much out there. I don't have the best advice on it, so I'm not going to give it, but I'll tell you, it is something that I'm starting to look into because it is growing so quickly, and to hear from people like Chris, who are actually making decisions in the industry, that's pretty awesome, you know? So it's definitely, if I were you as a musician, make sure it's in your top 3 priority platforms. And hopefully when I come back next time, I'll have better specific advice on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my question will be pertaining to my Instagram. So I have like almost 9,000 followers, but I've noticed that like my likes and stuff are like kind of going down. So what would you say? Should I like revamp my Instagram or like delete all my pictures, or like what should I do?
I wouldn't delete all your photos. All that hard work just gone. In fact, people love to scroll back and see old photos, and people love to see the evolution of your brand. So if those old photos, I mean, my old photos are rough. They're bad. But as much as I want to delete them, I don't, because people enjoy seeing that evolution. So I really wouldn't delete them, as tempting as it is. If your likes are going down, then let's think about what that means for a second. It means that people are not as engaged as maybe they once were. So you've got to try something new. You've got to get a bit experimental. How can we experiment with content to learn what your audience responds best to? I love this new app that came out, or it's a website, where you can see your top 9 Instagram posts of the year. If I were you, I'd go and find that. I think it's called Best 9, something like that. I'd go and actually look at your top Instagram posts of the year, 2015 and 2016. You can pull that information really easily just by Googling it on this website. It'll show you the top 9 posts of the year. Everyone should pull that and see why. Start to fill in the blanks and understand, why did your best posts perform the best? And start to understand and build some theories around that. For example, I did this. My top Instagram posts all included blue and pink, you know, which is kind of like my brand colors. My podcast artwork is pink. I use blue for upcoming book, and I use blue for a lot of different things. So that gave me some I created parameters around that, and I thought, those colors need to be obvious. Maybe not every post, but most posts. And remember, on Instagram too, you're also building like a mood board, a mosaic. It's not just how that individual photo looks, but it's just as important how all of those photos look together. If they look good, they're high quality, they work together, then you're increasing the likelihood that someone's going to follow you because what you've built looks great. So I would just I love that you're already starting to do that research. I would do more research to see what performed the best and why, and use that information for your strategy moving forward. Of course.
Hi, Phil. I have a few questions from our friends online.
Great.
Vanessa, who is in the Internet Marketing Program, would like to know if you have a specific plan on how to look for people to network with on Twitter.
Yeah, so that would come back to that 4th tweet type, which is NE, networking effort. And in the book, I go into more detail on this, but I identify 3 core groups of people that you need to be aware of, and I'll touch on it very briefly right now. Again, in the book, it goes into more detail, and I probably say it more eloquently than I can right now, but the 3 main groups of people that you need to be aware of in terms of finding that audience to build relationships with are competitors, direct competitors and indirect competitors. So a direct competitor is someone who offers the same thing as you that satisfies the same need. So if I'm a chef, a direct competitor is another chef in Orlando, let's say. An indirect competitor is someone who offers something different that satisfies the same need. So if I'm a chef in Orlando, an indirect competitor would be a food truck. It's a different caliber of food, but it still satisfies the same need, hunger. So you want to build a list of your direct competitors, indirect competitors, as well as like brands. These are people that are like you, but are not competing with you. So that could be a chef in Norway, which probably has great branding because people in Scandinavia know how to brand and design. So go be inspired by these people. So competitors, like brands, and brand heroes is the final group of people you need to be aware of. Brand heroes are people that are like you, but maybe a little bit fancier and maybe got their start a few years earlier. A brand hero for a chef could be Gordon Ramsay or Wolfgang Puck. You know, these are people that are major. What's beautiful about these 3 groups of people is that they've already curated an audience that we can safely make the assumption could be interested in what you're doing. And the beautiful thing specifically on Twitter is that you can go follow these people. People that follow your competitors, like brands and brand heroes, we assume are following those individuals because they're interested in what they have to say. Now, this is not always the case, but it's a pretty safe assumption. And on Twitter, it's beautiful because it gathers these people into a list that you can literally go and look and start to follow those individuals. So that's it in a nutshell of how you start those relationships in terms of understanding and being strategic about those targeted audiences that exist that are already made up on a list for you to just go start exploring.
Thank you. And then our second question is from Daniela, who graduated with a degree in digital arts and design, and she would like to ask how you overcome your creative blocks.
Oh, that is a constant challenge. Overcoming creative blocks. I think a lot about this because as a creative, not, you know, within a business, there are some things that you can go, yeah, that'll take me an hour. You know, this, I know what to expect, but when it's a creative project, sometimes, I'll give an example, making websites. Sometimes I can do what will take me in 1 hour, what could take me 6 hours. And that can be a problem as a creative because my days are busy and now I travel a lot. I speak at conferences. I don't always have the time. So this is something that is very real, a real challenge that I have that a lot of other people will have. You really just need to build your own system. You need to find out what can you do for yourself to clear your mind, not become too frustrated, take a break, unless that adds more stress to it because you need to meet a deadline. I think every single person would answer that question differently. You have to just explore what works for you. What works for me in terms of creative blocks, I've got to stop, take a break, go for a walk, change my environment is a big one. So I actually have a home office, work primarily from home, but I also have a desk at WeWork in LA, in Santa Monica. And so for me, I often go from office to office. Sometimes I'll spend half the day at home, but then if I find I'm getting distracted or I reach a creative block or something's just not jiving, I'll take a 5-minute walk, bring my laptop, go to WeWork where I'm in a new environment. That for me works, to have that variety of locations. And then obviously I'm traveling often, so I'm in new environments. But I love co-working spaces. I'm a huge advocate for it, not only for your own discipline, to be surrounded by other people who are working helps motivate you, probably more than you can be motivated to work at home. But I also love the network that a lot of these bigger co-working brands like WeWork have around the world. Next month, I'm going to WeWork in Paris. I was in WeWork Mexico City 2 weeks ago. WeWork should also pay me to keep talking about them, and they don't, but they should. But that for me works, is switching up my environment, keeps me challenged and keeps me focused.
Hey, Phil.
Hey.
I would like to ask a quick question.
Oh, that's good. You see, I see what you did there. Quick question. That's good.
This battle between followers and people I follow. You know, like I see all the time, like with celebrities, like they have like 1 million followers and they only follow like 100 people.
Yeah.
So should I worry? Like, I don't know. I think it's like an issue. Like, how many people do I follow versus how many people follow me?
Yeah. So if you have 1,000 following, people that you're following, if you have 1,000 following and 2 followers, what are you? A loser. You're a loser. So we don't want to be that. We want to have more followers than following. But even that ratio on its own speaks volumes for your brand. For example, for a brand that's approachable and positive and engaging, I think it's okay for those numbers to be pretty close. For a lot of brands that I've worked with, my advice to them has been follow back the people that are following you, because that's kind of like the friendly thing to do. But then I've also got clients that are fancy, that are on television, that are going in for jobs, and part of that job hinges on how popular they are online. For those clients, we're a bit more selective about who we follow back. In fact, I classify myself in that category. I don't follow everyone back, but the rule of thumb is if someone makes an effort, then I reward them with a follow back. But I don't follow everyone back because I'm speaking at conferences and I'm getting paid to speak at conferences and I need 50,000 followers. I can't be following back 50,000 because it kind of defeats the purpose of me looking fancy. So I try to keep my following under 10,000. So still, pretty positive. So I follow back. I mean, I'm not good at math, but, 2 in every 10 or 1 in every 5 people. That works for me, but I've made that decision. The most important thing for you to do is make a decision. I don't think you should have more following than followers. It doesn't really work in your favor. And there's no reason you should have more following than followers. If someone's not following you back on social media, what are they? They're dead to you. Add them to a list where you can still get their tweets from that list without having to follow them. Do not follow in celebrities. I mean, for some political reasons, maybe you can't unfollow someone like a client. I'm in that position where I've got fancy clients and I can't just go and unfollow them. So sometimes you have to, follow those people. I use a platform like Crowdfire where I can create what's called a whitelist, which is a list of people that I won't unfollow through that app, which I use to manage my ratios. It's a very good question and something that everyone should be thinking about. How strong are your ratios? With the strategy that I give in the book, people are able to implement that strategy and keep their followers higher than their following. It definitely works in your favor. Great question.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone online and here today for attending this session. And our last piece of business is we need to really show Phil some appreciation. So please put your hands together for Phil Pallen.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was going to mention it right now once the live stream.